Good evening. Before we get started, as is custom, we'll ask everyone to please rise. Hold on a minute. You okay? Okay. We'll ask everyone to please rise. You have. We'll be led in the pledge by Councilmember Warren Johnson, and online on Zoom is Reverend Al McMillan from First Baptist Church of Woodstock. Warren? Okay. Rhonda? Can you do it? Thank you.
Everybody, please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for all your many blessings, Lord. We thank you for allowing us to come together tonight, Father, as a group, and please watch over each one of us, Lord. Keep us healthy, safe, and strong, and thank you for what you've done for those that have had COVID and have been sick, and be with the families that have lost loved ones. And Lord, please be with the council tonight as they make decisions for the citizens in the city of Woodstock. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Thank you. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Woodstock to order for Monday, August 24th, 2020. A little bit of housekeeping, Council. Because people on the Zoom cannot hear very well, you're being asked when you speak right into the microphone, okay? And try and project. First order of business, I'm going to call on Michael Huffstedler. Is he still here? Michael, would you like to come up and introduce our new folk?
Yeah, I just want to introduce Barry Martin. He's our new Senior Center Coordinator. He's been here 2-3 weeks now, I think. We're pretty excited about some of the ideas that he has that we're about to have going forward here soon. Yeah, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Barry Martin. I'm, as he said, the new Senior Center Coordinator. I've spent a good part of my career running YMCAs, for-profit health centers, and for-profit sports and rec centers. A good portion of that working with seniors and active older adults. So I'm really excited to be in this community. We moved down from New Jersey after having lived in Ackworth prior to that. And so I'm thrilled to be living in Woodstock and working for the city of Woodstock.
Have you met those two ladies right there?
I have not, but I will.
They're with the Volunteer Aging Council.
Oh, fantastic.
You need to get to know them.
I will. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, first order of business is proclamation. First one is for National Payroll Week. Whereas the American Payroll Association and its more than 21,000 members have launched a nationwide public awareness campaign that pays tribute to the more than 150 million people who work in the U.S. and the payroll professionals who support the American system by paying wages, reporting worker earnings, and withholding federal employment taxes. Payroll departments collectively spend more than $2.2 trillion annually complying with a myriad of federal and state wage and tax laws. Payroll professionals play an increasingly important role ensuring the economic security of American families by helping to identify non-custodial parents and making sure they comply with their child support mandates. Whereas payroll professionals meet regularly with federal and state tax officials to discuss both improving compliance with government procedures and how compliance can be achieved at less cost to both government and businesses. It's hard to breathe in this thing. Now therefore, I, Donnie Henriquez, Mayor of City of Woodstock, do hereby proclaim the week in which Labor Day falls, September 7th to September 11th, 2020, as National Payroll Week, as proclaimed this 24th day of August, 2020. We'll get that to those folks. Next up, ladies, if you'd like to come up to the podium, give you a chance to say something after I read this. Whereas the late President Ronald Reagan first proclaimed August 21st as National Senior Citizens Day in 1988, in honor and recognition of our older generation who have achieved much for our families, our communities, and our country. Our community is blessed to have a nonprofit organization known as Cherokee County Volunteer Aging Council, or VAC, committed to raising funds to benefit the Cherokee County Senior Services programs such as Meals on Wheels, Last Stop Emergency Fund, home safety projects, and a fan, AC, and heater drive, as well as many other helpful assistance programs. Now, be it resolved, the Mayor and Council of the City of Woodstock hereby proclaim September 14th, 2020, the day of the Tee-Off for VAC Charity Golf Tournament, as Support Our Seniors Day, and encourage all citizens, elected officials, and city staff to support the fundraising efforts of the Volunteer Aging Council, so that the programs in place to aid and assist our elderly seniors and senior veterans can continue. We further encourage everyone to use this day to spend time with senior citizens, show your appreciation for senior citizens, and do volunteer work in support of the elderly, as proclaimed this 24th day of August. Ladies, as always, thank you, and go ahead and tell
Well,
us
we want to thank you guys, and because of COVID, this is our only charity event this year, and so we're really looking forward for a successful day. If any of you guys want to come out and golf, you're more than welcome. Just reach out to us and be happy to get a team. Like I said, it's going to be our only charity event, so and right now it's going really well, so hopefully we have a good day, no rain. So, but anyway, we also, like Donnie was saying, we're a nonprofit. It's been 20 years this year, and you know, we help our seniors in Cherokee County, primarily the lower income seniors, and we help build wheelchair ramps. We help with hot water tanks, etc. We've already spent probably over $50,000 this year on helping seniors in our community. So if anybody knows any businesses or, you know, that would want to help, whether it's plumbers, contractors, let us know. We're always looking for partners to partner up with us. But anyway, we thank you and appreciate this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, turn it over to Colin.
We have announcements for August 24, 2020. The Georgia Environmental Protection Division's open burning ban is in effect. The ban prohibits the burning of yard and land clearing debris from May 1st through September 30th and helps to improve Georgia's air quality during the hot summer months. Recreational activities such as campfires and grilling are exempt from the open burning ban. City offices will be closed in observance of Labor Day on Monday, September 7th. Trash service will be delayed by 1 day that week due to the Labor Day holiday. That's the announcements.
All right, thanks. Item 5-1 is an update on administrative variances from January 2020 to August 2020. I know Katie is online. Katie?
Hello, Mayor and Council. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Excellent. It's nice to virtually see you all tonight. So this is the administrative variance rundown that we give you about every 6 months. And what we've got on the list is just one administrative variance that happened between January and now. And that was for the Water's Edge Group for the Aiden Park development. And this is the second variance of that's exactly the same that they have received. This is for the other townhome building. So you may have noticed that driving up Main Street, one of them has been completed. And so this is granting the same variance for false windows on the side of the building that goes, it's on the Market Street corner, to have some false windows because they've got stairs and some other interior design elements to contend with there. So that is the report. Any questions?
Anybody? Nope. Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Item 5-2 is the CARES Act funding update. Jeff?
Yes, sir. I'm going to do this from here if you don't mind. I sent you an email today explaining the city's allotment for the CARES Act from the state was about 1.7 round number $1 million. As I said in the email, I'd like to thank Cody and Ron for doing the heavy lifting with staff on putting that together. Originally, the directions we got were that any expenditure we wanted to make was going to have to be submitted for approval process by the state and ultimately Uncle Sam. We got subsequent guidance that there were eligible expenses that we had already incurred that could count towards that. So when they were going through the exercise on projects, we were coming up, it ranged varying times between about $800,000 and $1 million. So we were concerned we weren't going to be able to use all of our allocation. But then the guidance came down that the hazard pay that you had previously approved back in the spring was eligible, along with police and fire salaries for non-administrators. So through June 30, that took us, if you took just those two expenditures, to about $2.1 million. There's also a window through the end of, I believe, August that expenses are eligible. So if there's another round from cities that did not utilize all of their allocation, since we've already filed a claim for it, we may very well get some additional funds. But I wanted to, so since we've met the threshold with the state and the federal for how the funds have to be spent, and we've already received the first 30% and have filed for the next 70%, which maybe it's pending, which we hope to hear from this week. That really kind of frees the money up at this point. It's truly a reimbursement for expenses the city has already made. Some in last fiscal year, I guess most in last fiscal year, maybe some in this fiscal year. So what we did is, when I got back, started working back in the office part-time, I started meeting with Ron and Crystal and with Cody on this to work our way through it. Ron's going to go through the list tonight of projects that we're recommending to you. This is just for your input tonight. We're not asking for approval. These will have to come back as budget amendments. But just a couple of general comments that I wanted to explain. Here's kind of the guiding principles we use in our discussions about what to include in the recommendation. Public health and safety first. That could be a reimbursement for some PPEs we've already bought, or it could be additional things that department directors requested. And that's the public health and safety for residents, employees, and guests. The second thing we wanted to address was needs in the community that we saw. The third, how can we address technology deficiencies identified in the pandemic? Some were already mentioned here tonight with audio here, some with additional equipment, some with equipment for staff that will allow them to do electronic plan reviews easier. How we could do those type things. What items were cut from last year or this year's budget of revenue concerns from the pandemic that need to be put back in or could be put back in. We didn't put everything back in, but we do have a few specific recommendations. And what one time, and that does include a few personnel positions that were frozen, specifically 2 police and 1 fire. And then a half a year for Parks and Recreation at the senior center, I believe was also included. And then 1 reorg that I also included in the email to you. And then we also one of the guiding principles that we used or since we don't know, no one knows how long this is going to last. What are some one-time expenses that we know that we're going to either weren't able to fund this year in the budget, or we know that's coming that we're going to have to fund in the next year? How could we use some of the funds to put ourselves as we go through the budget process next year in a better position to deal with those primarily capital expenditures? And so that's how we've kind of laid this out. Ron, since I'm still kind of limited on breath at this point, Ron's going to kind of walk through that. If you want to make notes and ask us emails, questions, or on the next agenda, that's fine. If you want to ask for clarification, that is fine. But solely tonight, we're just presenting it to you, and we just need direction and input over the course of the next couple of weeks.
So this goes ahead and suggests 1.7 million in expenditures. Of these, 200,000 of the expenditures will be recurring, and those are position changes or restorations just to get us back to status quo. In buildings, we need 10,000 in overtime, and that's to cover some of the COVID sanitization going on the weekends in the buildings. Much cheaper than us going out and contracting for that to be done. That would run us about $10,000 a month, so we thought that this was a better use of those funds. In the building, the annex building needs some badge readers, 3 badge readers on doors that have not been equipped with them yet. The annex building needs an HVAC replacement done. That's going to be $158,000. While we're doing that, we also need to replace the roof over there. It all has to happen at one time, because when they're hauling that HVAC up there, they're going to be causing some damage to the roof. That roof already needed it, so that's another $150,000. In community development and the fire department, we need 3 42-inch monitors, which will allow them to go to weekly review teams virtually rather than meeting together using the Bluebeam system to go ahead and review reports and submittals. Community development also needs a display plan review table, which will allow them to go fully to a paperless review of all the plans that are submitted. They will no longer need to have any contact with the public in terms of dealing with those plans. Food pantry grants. A consideration was put in here for you to consider 4 food pantries in Woodstock we know exist here. For a grant right now, we're proposing $10,000 for each one of them. That can be adjusted at your discretion. School grants. Currently, the schools are using the Khajiit MiFi devices. We're proposing here a total of 270 units that can be distributed throughout 3 or 4 schools. And that would depend upon their need and what they're requesting from us. These would have 2 gigabytes of data per unit, and only for schools that serve Woodstock residents. We've got in here 50,000 to council contingency for implementation of the IT security analysis report we've just recently got. That will give you the discretion on how to go forward on implementing that. Touchless faucets for the restrooms that are over at Elm Street. This was a change order that was put in, and this will allow us to go ahead and pay for that. For all the PPE that we purchased that will get reimbursement from FEMA, we're responsible for 25% of that cost. So this 25% that I placed in here is an estimate to cover some of that. We're right now probably about $22,000 spent in terms of PPE, and we expect it through December to maybe jump another 4 or 5. Let's see, department reorganization. This is for the deputy finance director. This is aligning the position with the knowledge and work she's already been performing. So we placed that in here. That's been, since I first arrived, that was something I identified when I first got here. We had to delay that during the budget process, but this would allow us to go ahead and do that. Council chambers, AV equipment, the total replacement of the AV equipment in here so that these virtual meetings go smoother. That will run us about $125,000 to do that. At the same time, as you can notice, we've got these temporary risers over here, but it would provide us a way to redo the dais here at the same time, running those cables underneath. May as well do it all at one time. So that's another $30,000. We've got 25,000 being put into the city manager contingency, and that's for possible reinstatement of in-state education and travel. We really had to cut that almost 50%. We cut out 150,000 out of education and travel, and told them that it was restricted down to in-state only. This allows a little more leeway so that if some new education pops up, then we're able to handle that. FY21 unfunded frozen positions, that's a total of 189,542. As it was mentioned, that was police, fire, and parks. That's what those cover. In human resources, we currently are paying Target Care for some COVID-19 counseling services every month. This covers the base cost of that. It runs $650 a month. So through December, that $3,900 would cover that. Information Technologies requested 2 additional Surface Pros to be used for mayor and council meetings and other planning commission virtual meetings. So those 2 Surface Pros would be purchased for that use and to be lent out for that. We've also got laptop equipment for work at home situations, especially if we come back this fall and have to do that again. We had at least one we identified clearly that she needed to be switched over from a basic desktop to a take-home laptop along with the docking station. And we've allowed for 2 more in there just in case the situation arises. In information technology, we also noticed the extreme difference in web camera usage during virtual meetings. Some people are clear as a bell and others sound like they're in a well. So what we want to do is purchase 20 standardized web cameras so that everyone's sounding the same, sounding even for use if you're doing it from home. They could be lent out and also for staff. IT had noticed a need for desktop battery backups. We've, in the last 6 months, had a lot of outages going on, and it's totally taken out the computers at the annex and other places. So what we want to do is get 101 battery backup units and put them on every desktop that we've got and every laptop that we've got, give them that access. We are requesting a mobile AV cart. Right now on this, it says 2, but the funding there is actually recommendation for 1. And that's for virtual meeting use in any location, as well as in the courtrooms for video upgrades there. There are times when you're doing training in the courtroom, if you're stuck in the back of the room, you're not able to see what's up on the screens up front. This will allow us to put 1 midway. This unit would also be able to be transported in a car to any other location within the city that we might have a use for it. Trestle Rock Trail Extension, this is $38,800 that was not included in the budget this year for that.
Can I interject something
Yes.
here? So last year, you'll remember when the office shut down and everything started going off the rails in the country with COVID related, I shut down a number of projects. This was one of them. They had got started. This is to do the concept plan and connect Trestle Rock Trail to BLA Park to approach the core about permitting. So this is for Clark Patterson and Lee. It's already been awarded. This just funds it so they can go ahead and finish that. I do have good news for you though. We had also shut down the master planning process for Little River Park. That money did roll forward in the budget. And so this week, have you talked to Liz? We turned her loose to go ahead and complete the master planning process on that. So work is back underway on that. I just wanted to use this the opportunity to update you on that as well.
For Parks and Recreation, they had a couple of requests in order to deal with COVID-19. One of them was a contactless registration and rental software for $4,500. That allows them to take payments in an online environment. They had a couple of hand sanitizer stations with different setups. So that's about $1,400-1,500 in terms of our cost. The rest of the cost would come from FEMA, the other 75%. Parks and Recreation also needed the rear entry to the senior center converted to an automatic door. That would run us $5,000. They need electrostatic fogging equipment and supplies to go ahead and do disinfection. Again, that's just the 25% a month that's represented there. The balance of it will be coming from FEMA. We'll be getting FEMA reimbursement for that. These are all FEMA eligible expenses. The ozone generator, that's also supposed to be an air cleaner, air sanitization system for the senior center. It would run $625 for us, $2,500 total, including the FEMA portion. Parks and Recreation needs plexiglass at the entry desk to the senior center to help with that COVID-19 distancing. They want some credit card processors to reduce money handling. 10 of those would run us $200. NRPA COVID-19 signage. They've got about a $500 worth of signage, which 125 would be this out of these funds. Parks and Recreation needs some infrared thermometers. Again, that's running about $1,000. So really be 250 out of this. There's a typo there. Line marking machines they need for a total cost of $2,400. And then we were looking at how else to try and make these funds do some work for us that we needed done. When we had the GTIB hub transformation project that came in, if you'll remember that the project was essentially short from our request by about $750,000. So we're looking to actually use some of these funds to do that replacement. Right now, we were hitting fund balance for that $750,000 out of the general fund. This allows us to instead use these COVID-19 funds to take care of that GTIB project and keep our fund balance healthy. And then finally, anything from any of these projects that might not be quite as expensive, those are all intended to fall back to fund balance in the general fund.
And that gives you the control over what to do with it.
So those are our recommendations. Below, there are 4 or 5 other items, if you want to look at them later, that were projects that were previously submitted by departments, but that within the prioritization that we were working, didn't make it on the top, above the line. But if you wanted to discuss it more, I'd be happy to do that with you at some other time. That's it.
Questions, comments? Thank you, Ron.
You're needing feedback from us, Jeff, guidance, you said.
If you have some specific things now that you need additional information on or questions, we'd be happy to answer those. Or if you wish to wait, you know, originally we were bumping up against the September 1st deadline on this. We don't have that anymore, so we have time to talk about it. Some of these are a little more time sensitive than others. Some aren't time sensitive at all.
Okay. If you need specific feedback, I'd like to request a copy of the list to review, but I know it's going to come back on budget amendments. We can look at when it comes back. I wasn't sure what you needed.
Yeah, I think any feedback you can give us on any of these items so that we can readjust before we bring a budget amendment back would be helpful. I don't envision there being necessarily one full package of budget amendments for these. It may be done in several groups or by department. So any feedback you want to give back to us is welcome. And again, it's not time sensitive. You don't have to do it tonight, or you want to have it on a follow-up agenda or follow-up meeting on it to discuss, just whatever you wish. We're happy to comply because it's a big swipe that, you know, it's a once in a lifetime type thing that comes up that you don't plan for every year. So that's why we don't want to rush you on it.
If we can get a copy, I don't think that list was in the agenda package.
It was not, but I think Ron handed it out to you.
Okay.
If you would like a digital copy, we'll be happy to email it to you.
Now, I wasn't sitting at my desk when he delivered it and I overlooked it. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? All right. 5-3 is discuss potential code changes to extend administrative variance powers. Katie, you still online?
Yes, I am. Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Great, thank you. All right, so this is an informational presentation tonight only we've had a couple of issues come up, and so I just want to see what you guys think about a potential code update to give the DPC a little more power to administratively approve some architectural variances with certain limits in place. Next slide, please. So this would be a change to section 10.140 and possibly other sections for, you know, to make sure all the sections agree with each other. But under the powers and duties of the Development Process Committee, right now, the DPC can review applications for administrative variances for these items that I have here listed in blue. And you can see on most of these, there is a like a maximum percentage, like parking space numbers up to 20%, buffers and setbacks up to 20%. And then there are some other items that are more design-based that don't have limits, like allowing gravel in a parking lot in downtown. The code says we can do that administratively. So one of the things that we're planning to do in some future code updates is kind of consolidate, or maybe in this code update, if you guys like this idea, but to try to consolidate some of these, all of these items into a more comprehensive list. Because what I have right here is not the code language, it's really short and paraphrased. So administrative variances are not allowed to add to existing variances. So you can see they're supposed to be kind of somewhat narrow in focus. And the code says the DPC can approve, deny, or forward to the Planning Commission. And we need to update this code section anyway to make the process really clear. And like I said, make a more comprehensive list. Next slide, please. So the current issue that's come up right now, we are working on a house plan review for one of the houses in South on Main, but it comes up often where we have, you know, one or a couple of architectural variance requests. So you've seen a variety of these requests over time. We bring them to you through the public hearing process. Sometimes they're coupled with zoning requests or annexations, or it's like about a whole entire neighborhood. Or you know, special or historic structures like the Play case, for example. So those types of requests have more of an effect on the community and should probably be decided as they are now through the regular public hearing process. But what I want to talk to you about are these smaller requests that I've got a couple of examples of here. So some are small details that the only thing holding back a house permit approval is just this one code section that they can't or don't want to meet for whatever reason. Sometimes there's hardship, sometimes there's not. So it would maybe not be even noticed by the layperson, you know, something really small and would not produce strange results and is not going to be granted on a large scale. So these you can see over here in blue, these are the types of requests that are going to, as time goes on, become more cumbersome for us to deal with individually as the city grows. You know, South on Main has another like 400 and something houses to build just in that neighborhood alone. And, you know, we're getting busier and busier as time goes on. So, you know, eventually some of these cases, you know, they may only affect the owner who's going to commission the building or who is purchasing the house. And so these are the kind of requests that I want to ask you about tonight to see if maybe we can get a little bit more powers administratively. Because when somebody doesn't meet one little code section in the architectural code, if it's not something that's on that administrative variance list, we have no choice but to tell them, you know, it's the 3-month public hearing process for you. So next slide, please. So some examples of a decision at the staff level that maybe could have made sense to be made at the staff level that you guys might remember. So the one over here on the right is the Chick-fil-A. They got a variance to just this one section. They went through the whole process because it was really important to them to have like kind of a modesty panel below their windows. And storefront treatment says that you have to have a knee wall that's between 8 and 12 inches. And so 12, I think, is like the max it can be, which is pretty short. Or maybe it's 24. And whatever it is, oh yeah, here he goes, 24 as my slide says. But they wanted it to be 40 inches to cover where the booths were going to be in their restaurant. And so, you know, you guys thought that was reasonable, so you approved the request. But, you know, if we could do some architecture in downtown by administrative variance, staff could have maybe made that decision. Another situation where we've had good results is Mad Life. They went through the variance process to do those garage doors on their patio front. But it, you know, is really giving them a variance to a whole bunch of different sections, 15 subsections in total, actually, because it was completely doing away with storefront treatment. So, you know, as a DPC, the committee probably is qualified to decide if we're going to have good results or not, or if something is going to be out of place on Main Street, or if it's going to look just fine like this does at Mad Life. So, you know, depending on how much power you might want to give the DPC, we could make decisions like this, or we could keep it to just 1 or 2 code sections. Next slide, please. A couple of more examples on the more, you know, private single family residence situation. This is a situation where I really think you guys might be interested in giving staff the ability to do some administrative variance when it's things like, you know, the 30% windows. So you can see in the bottom right-hand corner in this aerial, both of these properties are on a corner and they both came before you to get variances. And one of the things that they both asked for was the 30% windows on the side frontage facing Laura Lane and Dobbs Road. So in both situations, they're pretty far away from the road, and they had bathrooms or whatever. And you know, they also had nice, unique architecture. And so this is not really a situation where you're just going to have a blank wall with nothing to look at. They just couldn't quite meet the 30%. So this might be a situation where you might want to give staff the ability to administratively decide. Next slide, please. This is an example, rootstock and vine. It was a whole bunch of variances, but they were all to the same code, and it was all based on them reusing the Hot Dog Heaven building. So this is another situation where, you know, if DPC had the power to decide some things, I would probably say this would be one that you wouldn't necessarily, you might enjoy hearing about it because it's such a cool project, but you wouldn't necessarily need to hear about this one to make sure that we have good results in downtown. So, you know, part of what we're talking about here is, you know, when we talk about the residential structures, these are not really things that people would necessarily notice. And on a building like this, it's not really a thing that people would notice because they were coming really close to meeting the code. They've got the transom windows, they just weren't the right height. You know, they've got the windows all down the side of the building, but it didn't quite reach 75%. So, you know, these are situations where that we're talking about that I'm hoping you'll consider. Next slide, please. One more example, 28 and Mill. So in this situation, the door, the code says the window, provide vertical windows where the top of the window and the bottom of the window are no higher and no lower than the top of the door frame and the bottom of the door frame. So meaning you can't have like a foyer that's on a slightly different level than the rest of the house, which is kind of common, especially in townhomes that are rear loaded with the garage on the bottom level. So these are the ones that face the trail on 28 and Mill, and you granted this variance, and it was based on topography, but also on design preference. You can see the side view of the house right here. So they could have decided to grade differently and have that middle level, you know, have the front door come straight out, but it was a design choice. And you also approved this on a larger scale in Haddonstone, which that was the entire development. So, you know, in that case, when it's every single unit in a whole development, it might make sense to go ahead and go through the variance process because that's kind of a bigger design choice. The whole place is going to look different. But with 28 Mill, this was one row of the whole bit of townhomes that they had there. And so this is one where I would maybe say the DPC maybe could have some more influence. Next slide, please. So here's where I want to hear from you guys. I hope that you have some opinions here. You know, can we reduce our workload and yours by increasing the powers of the development process committee to approve more downtown architectural related requests administratively? And what types of requests should these be? You know, we could do just residential only to start when it's a person's individual single house, like if no neighborhoods, no full neighborhoods. That might be a good way to ease into this. Or we could do small commercial projects where they only need a variance to like one code section or two code sections max, you know. So that's the next part here. Would it be wise to limit the administrative power like we do with the 20% for the setbacks? So I'm right now proposing to write something for just section 7.729, which includes residential and storefront treatment definitions just for downtown. And to limit the number of code sections allowed to be considered on one project before it's escalated to the full public hearing process. So maybe 2 subsections per building, like if it were a commercial building, or just 2 subsections for just one house in a neighborhood if it's residential. And we could also limit requests that apply to an individual building and not an entire neighborhood, like I said. So this is kind of what I'm thinking, and I hope you guys have some feedback. What do you guys think, or do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So what is the number of cases that we see where this would apply on average year? And I mean, I know you shared some examples with us where,
well, yeah,
granted
sorry.
some of those variances. Are there other examples, like how often or what percentage of the time do we grant those variance requests versus not?
Well, more often than not, people do not apply and they change their design instead. So like if we're reviewing like an individual house or a commercial building and it's just one code section they don't meet, usually instead of going through the 3-month public hearing process, they'll just change their design because it's usually something that's somewhat minor, or maybe it's not minor to them, but it's, you know, when they want to sell that house really fast or the commercial building needs to be done, a lot of times people decide not to go through the process. So, you know, with those kinds of, we have those conversations all the time with applicants and people doing site plans and going back and forth with comments. It's just kind of a negotiation to try to get their project closer to the code. So, and keep them out of the variance process if possible, because, you know, we really want people to follow the code. So I wish I could tell you. I know Brantley might be in that room. Maybe he's got an idea, but I don't even really have a guess. Probably a lot.
He's not jumbo down.
I don't really blame him because I don't know if any of us would really know the answer, but you know, we could try this for a limited time and do a report to you guys and you know, tell you about the kinds of requests we're getting and approving after a month or two, or monthly report until you guys don't want to do it anymore, or you know, there are a lot of ways we could do it.
With exceptions granted as per the, you know, administrative variance report that we just got. So I don't really see an issue with expanding this somewhat. I like the idea of the reporting that you already do. And I like the idea of, you know, maybe maxing us out of 2 subsections where y'all can look at that. I think those are decent ideas.
Well, and Councilman, the report that was on the agenda earlier tonight for administrative variance, when I came in 2008, there were no administrative variances. And so that was one of the checks and balances that we negotiated, staff negotiated when Richard was here with council, is that we would every 6 months report back to council on the type of variances that were being issued by staff. So you would see every single one of them. So that if there were issues or you felt were being too stingy or being too liberal in granting the variances, or you didn't like the type of variance you're granting, that it could be adjusted. So that has gone on now for almost 12 years, at least 11 years, where we've twice a year reported on those. So I think it's a great check and balance. And, you know, I don't think we would have any problems whatsoever if you add some other areas, including those in the biannual reports that we give you now.
Yeah. And I like the reports, and I think the suggestions outlined in green here make a lot of sense. As a start. So
Would you like to start with only residential or also small commercial projects if maybe they're under a certain square footage, or they only need 1 or 2 subsections, or just maybe we could do residential for like 3 months or something and then report?
I would go for small commercial as well.
I'd be fine with that as well.
Okay, that would help us in the situations like Rootstock, where it's something that we know goes with the intent of the code, but it's just details when it comes to like measurements and stuff like that. This also reminds me of that, you know, the Dairy Queen on Highway 92, they went through a like a facelift in like 2014 or something, and they couldn't meet the 75% glass. So they kept that glass like sunroom area that goes around the front. So, you know, that's a situation where if we had they wanted to stay out of the variance process, so they just didn't do their design they wanted to do. But, you know, we probably could have ended up with a more updated design for that building if we had this code section then. So I'm glad to hear your feedback, and we'll prepare something and bring it back to you for a first reading on September 14th. Are there any other questions or comments?
You got something? No? You good? Okay. All right. You have some direction, Katie?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, item 6 is public comment. I've got one request from Bill Butler. Bill, if you'd like to come to the podium.
Yeah, my name is Bill Butler, and for most of you, I doubt you don't know me. I started Ridgewalk Development in 1998, and it was not with the group that carried on with it in 2010. I have some pictures that would like to maybe share with y'all to show that there's absolutely nothing done whatsoever when I started. We assembled about 350 acres and so forth, and and took it through the zoning. Over time, zoning was changed. Obviously, we preferred some of it not to, but life goes on. But one thing I want to talk very seriously about is that from 1998 to 2007, the majority of people, except I would say Donnie was here except for out one term. And I think Tracy was here for at least one of the terms, but I don't think that really anybody else was. So point I'm trying to make, there was a whole lot that went on, and there's been a discrepancy about the water and sewer, and I want a clarification on it. That number one, when I came here and I had the letters from Jerry Cooper, who was the city manager at the time, that they could provide sewer. They had a backup from Cobb County. They did not. It fell through. I had to go negotiate a deal with with Cherokee, and ran a line that was, I want to say, best my recollection, was around $5 million. And Jeff Moon in 2009, I asked for reimbursement for all of that. He agreed. Council agreed to reimbursement of $560,000. They paid $230,000. Some of my later partners obviously felt they'd like to have gotten some of that money, but frankly, I lost several $1 million that was in a previous partnership that I started totally without any of them. We worked diligently to bring everything in. The roads, I worked with Johnny Isaacson. I think Jeff and the mayor and so forth worked, when we were almost at the finish line with the interchange. And Cousins property I had under contract for the front piece where the mall is now for 7 years. And we kept extending it. And obviously everybody knows what happened. The market fell apart. Horizon came in and literally, about as polite a manner as I can get it, is they cleaned their clock because we had to go into that partnership in the bankruptcy, or we would have lost it all. So at that point, literally, I lost control of the property. There became too many players. And what's happened has happened. I put my soul in this. I had retired and started back, and I lost millions of dollars up here. That's fine. Y'all taken what I started and done a phenomenal job with it. I have asked Jeff to buy the other half of the credits. He said he preferred or would not. And there's some language in there in the document that says that I can own land, and in that way I can get the credits. There was an opinion from Eldon Basham that said I could do as I choose with them. But frankly, there is a legal way that I can buy into a partnership and sell them. But I would much rather it be totally clean and to a discount to the city where the city benefits, and I'll be finished with it. And I'm willing to discount the credits 20% because, I've got 4 people that would like to buy the credits. So if you bought, if you paid me, you still save on $230,000. So what is that? Math, what is that? About $65,000 in savings. So that's that. And, I'd like to be able to put these into the files because I think y'all might like to have something of the information that most of you are not privy to. We used to chase the turkeys out there riding through the roads. So this truly was, when I came here, this was truly country. And you've done a phenomenal job now finishing out Ridgewalk. And, a lot of things I think would have gone even a little more differently, but, I went through 3 city managers, 2 or 3 planning guys. It was quite a bit of changing going on in the first 7 or 8 years. Matter of fact, 3 mayors. Matter of fact, Donnie was the 3rd mayor, if I'm not mistaken. So that is just, y'all are supposed to have a session tonight, and I can't talk about that, but I did want to tell you that the importance to me to be settled with this and try to do something that I think would be beneficial to the city and to me, because I am going to do something with them. I would prefer it to just to be you know, open and shut case, because I know Jeff told me that, well, that's burning up cash. Well, the way I look at it, it's taking a liability off your books and it's saving you 20% of the $230,000. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak. Congratulations on how well the city has grown. I've also lost a couple other pieces of dirt up here that you're also getting tap fees off of that I lost during, I call the Great Depression. Thank you for your time. I know you're going to executive session, and I hope you'll take what I said into consideration. And again, I only do this because Donnie was the only person that literally was here 90% of the time. And then Tracy, if I'm not mistaken, was one full time while I was still here, maybe two. So thank you all for your time. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Rhonda, is anybody online? Public comment? Okay, thank you. Item 7 is consent agenda items 1 through 14. Does any council member wish to pull any agenda item to consider separately? Having heard none, I'll need a motion.
You have a motion to approve the consent agenda items. Second.
We have a motion and a second by David. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. We've got one remote, so we're going to do a roll call vote. Ward 1.
Aye.
2.
Aye.
3.
Aye.
4. 5.
Aye.
6. Motion carries 6-0. Sorry, I almost forgot about you, Brian. Item 8-1 is public hearing and vote on case A 106-20 Northside Hospital rezoning. Brantley?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much. I think we're on the wrong. Could you give me the next slide, please? I think we might have the wrong show loaded here.
That's last meeting.
That's okay. Next slides, please. We had a few in here, I think, for the second readings, or for the second readings on the consent agenda. Here we go. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Next slide, please. So this is A106-20. This is Northside Hospital. Mr. Don Hosfeld, who's here tonight, represented by Parks Health, who's here tonight as well. And this is 3.5 acres on Town Lake Parkway, tax parcels 15 and 11, and 15 and 11 10B, and 15 and 11 18A. The applicant is requesting rezoning from general commercial in Cherokee County to general commercial in the city of Woodstock, with existing conditions on the premises to remain as zoned in the county, and any signage that is permitted in Cherokee County at the time of annexation. And we'll go into the signage in just a moment. The DPC and the Planning Commission did recommend each to recommend approval to you as recommended by staff. The recommendation, I should say, from the Planning Commission was identical to that of the DPC. Next slide, please. So where's this located? This is located on the north side of Town Lake Parkway in that northwest quadrant of Town Lake Parkway and I-575. These are a couple of remnants of property adjacent to the existing Northside Hospital Medical Campus. We've actually been in discussions with Don and Northside for a number of years about addressing the side of the map, this side of the city, to be able to bring this in and seal in this unincorporated pocket or island, if you will, in this location. We view this as a strategic location to bring in, and in accordance with the annexation policy as well, which I'll get to in a minute, to basically ensure that we have the opportunity to potentially annex, if the property owner chooses to do so, the property on the south side of Town Lake Parkway that is highlighted in yellow on the slide, yellow dash lines. There's some unincorporated property on the south side there, and presents probably in the future a great redevelopment opportunity. And bringing this property in now ensures that when the opportunity does arise, that we don't create an island, which of course is not permitted by state law.
And specifically, we're talking about the strip center and the trailer park. At some point, those will redevelop, and while we have a chance to work out an agreement to avoid creating an island in the future and have a seat at the table for the discussions on how those redevelop, we thought it was an opportune time to go ahead and try and make it happen.
Exactly. Next slide, please. So looking at the annexation policy, council policy manual, we believe that this proposed annexation does meet quite a few of the criteria, the priorities especially. This, by bringing this in, this entire quadrant in this area will be in the city. Obviously, the areas receiving services today, aligning municipal boundaries, and of course, long-term growth and expansion opportunities, as Jeff just said, looking at the south side of Town Lake Parkway and perhaps areas beyond as well. Next slide, please. And also in the policy are decision-making factors, which complement the priority areas. And we believe that by bringing this area in, again, there'll be future growth opportunities, positive long-term growth, commercial growth as well, potentially. And, we believe that ultimately it makes a lot of sense to clean up this area. North side coming in to work with us on it presents a great opportunity. Next slide, please. So as part of their request, and we're going to get into the zoning conditions in a minute, Northside has been seeking to take down 2 existing signs on Town Lake Parkway and install a new sign to replace these 2, which would, I think, suit their needs better, and they'll certainly want to address that when they speak. But we evaluated this sign as it is in unincorporated Cherokee County right now. They were pursuing a permit for the sign with the county. And what I'd like to do, if you don't mind at this time, is ask Dakota on our staff to speak to the sign and explain the technical aspects of it and what she's found in her review. And then I'll come back up and go over those conditions.
If I can interrupt.
Yes, sir.
Just a minute.
Yes, sir.
I just want to remind everybody that unless you're speaking, I'm going to ask you to put your mask on. Cody? Thank you. Go ahead, Dakota.
Thank you, Brantley. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, awesome. Okay, like Brantley mentioned, Northside Hospital has been in the pursuit of a sign permit for this sign in the county. I believe one of the reasons they didn't get it issued and go ahead with that process is because the county keeps you on a strict timeline once it's issued to begin construction. They would also have to remove the 2 existing signs that are on the property, which they do want to do and will do at the time of construction. They just were not really prepared to do that on such a tight timeline, and they did want to, like we've said, come and annex into the city. So they've been in pursuit with that. To Cherokee County standards, they would be permitted. And I want to point out, I have listed here at the bottom just a few differences, what's being proposed, and then the difference in standards between us here at the city of Woodstock and then over in Cherokee County. So they are proposing the sign as shown at 208 square feet, and that is the entire structure of the sign. And then it is 16 feet tall. The copy area, if you will, of the sign is 120 square feet. And the copy area, or I believe it's called the sign face area as well in some other places, just is kind of a boxed in area of words, symbols, punctuation, different things like that. And that's what's outlined here in yellow. And this is a standard that the county goes by. So the county does not look at the size of the structure as a whole. It looks at just that specific copy area. We, on the other hand, look at structure. So that's where some of those differences are. In the county, electronic signage is permitted at this location. They are permitted 32 square feet, which is what they are proposing here. As you all know, electronic signage in the city is only permitted in the Parkway overlay with some different standards that come with that as well. So therefore, in the city, it is over on the size, and it is showing this electronic signage that is not permitted as right now in this location. I do also want to point out, I have a little note about this at the bottom, that the 2 existing signs that are on this parcel would need to be removed before issuance of a permit, whether you're in the county or the city. But like I said before, the applicant has already suggested taking these signs down. That's something that they want to do and consolidate into this one sign. If you look down at the bottom to the right, there's just kind of a location map showing where these 2 existing signs are and where the proposed sign would be going. And then you could see the different directions coming from traffic, from 575 and then coming the other direction on Town Lake Parkway, kind of what that sign would look like at this location. Before I hand it over to Brantley, does anyone have any questions specifically about this sign?
No.
Awesome. All right, take it away, Brantley.
Thank you very much. Next slide, please. So in discussions with Northside, they do plan to build the sign. They were in the permitting process. It is legal and can be permitted and built in Cherokee County. But we want to work with them now to bring it into the city. And so we want to leave open the opportunity for them to be able to build it on their timeline and in the future, and they can talk about that. So we've crafted some conditions, recommended conditions with this annexation. We've recommended the Gateway District for this area. Specifically, that these properties be exempt, as these are kind of remnant leftover properties. We don't want to inadvertently have some inconsistencies with that overlay. Additionally, on number 2, the entitlements reserved, the properties have been in the county. Obviously, they have received, I think, one of the parcels has received a variance in the past, or administrative variance. So we want to make sure whatever entitlement they have in the county that they've received from the Board of Commissioners, that they're able to bring with them. And so that's what we're saying there. And then with the proposed sign, it's very important that because that sign meets the requirements of the Cherokee County Code today, that going forward, we recognize and adopt with this ordinance the entire Cherokee County sign code with it. That way in the future, if there's any deviation or if they have to address anything with the sign, in my opinion, it would be very difficult to try to hybridize it or use part of the Woodstock code or part of the Cherokee County code, when today we know that they can build it in the county and it's compliant with the county's code. So therefore, we're recommending that the entire Chapter 11 from the Cherokee County Code of the 1992 zoning ordinance of Cherokee County be attached to this ordinance. That way, in the future, when they're able to permit it within the next 3 to 4 years, it'll be no doubt that they can do it, and that it was and would have been permitted at the time of annexation, and that it'll be permitted and legally able to be constructed at that time as well. So to me, that's probably the most sure way to ensure that that can be done in the future. And so that is what we recommend. And we've talked to the applicant, and they believe on the outside it would be 4 years that they would install it. And so that's our presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. And the applicant's here for us to present. We have to have a public hearing as well.
Any questions? Okay. Mr. Huff.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. For the record, my name is Park Soap, the law firm of Sam Larkin Huff, and I'm here with Don Hosfeld. He moved on me there. I was like, did he leave? And I represent Don Hosfeld, or Northside Hospital, in relation to this annexation and zoning request that includes approval of the sign that they have been going through the permitting process in Cherokee County. As you know, Northside Hospital has been a great partner to the city. They are a good community hospital that serves the community very well, and I've also been very involved in community aspects and your amphitheater and such. And they were approached because these 2 properties are pretty much an island, even if they're not technically a violation of the island ordinance. but they are an island, and it would be for service delivery, it makes sense to bring it in the city. But the city's interest is the fact that the two properties to the south cannot be annexed because they would create an unincorporated island. That piece, mainly the southern piece that's right up against 92, Town Lake Parkway, would be an island by itself. And so the property, the little shopping center and the mobile home park, which I'm glad to know it's redevelopment. I thought you were wanting a mobile home park in the city, but
Not on the Christmas list.
but so that is the reason for the annexation, is to work with the city so that if those properties can be annexed and redeveloped, they can be brought into the city without any problems zoning wise. All we've asked for is that the sign that is permittable in the city or in the county right now be allowed. We've got a 4-year time period to be able to install that sign. Your planning DPC recommended approval of this application. I don't know if you're aware of it, but your planning commission has some negative feelings about signs sometimes, but they recommended approval of this application because the fact that the real question is not whether the sign's gonna be there or not there. The question is whether the properties in the city limits or not in the city limits. That's really the only question. So we would like these properties to be in the city to be able to work with the city so that the other properties to the south can be annexed or annexable in the future. And as I said, Northside's always been a great partner with the city, wanting to be able to do what we can to work with the city on requests like that. So there are two properties that don't have any other use on them right now, no anticipated use other than signage. And when the new signage goes in, the existing old signage will go. So I'm here to answer any questions you have, but we just ask that you follow the staff recommendation, we follow you, and that you follow your planning commission recommendation.
How soon can the old signs be removed?
Well, they will not be removed until the new sign is there. And you know, all the that goes in with getting that sign up, on that's the reason we've got a 4-year time period to put that sign up. It's an,
Those things are nice.
yeah, I think when this one's up, it'll be clean up that entrance on Town Lake Parkway. You've got no objection from the north side that the new sign would be a great replacement for those old signs.
What we can do is we only use one of the signs, and you'll see that they have that for prom and all those kind of things. What we can do, I'm pretty sure I can speak for Northside on this, we haven't been using the other one. So we'll take down the old decrepit one and just keep the one up that's actually active right now. They just didn't want to, over time, that parcel was purchased separate from the actual building. They just didn't want to give up any of their rights to Cherokee County and the fact that there are already 2 signs there. So with your approval, we'll go ahead and take that old one down and then just keep the one up.
So Mayor, one thing to add by way of background, because I've been involved with this since the beginning. When Northside bought the retail center that was there and tore it down, these 2 parcels were owned by a separate owner. When we came in and asked the legislature in 2010 and they annexed 575 in the city limits, the property owner after the fact objected. We had to go back the next year and de-annex a 10-foot strip to connect these 2 so that it technically hadn't created an island. That was something that Senator Rogers asked us to do. So that's why they weren't included at the time. Northside came back later and acquired these 2 parcels. I do know from discussions at the time, the former owner had looked at doing some mini storage on the northernmost parcel that backs up to the subdivision that's in the city. And Mayor, you may have been on council when he looked at doing that. So, you know, consolidating, when Northside bought them to consolidate it, they really did us a favor to kind of help control. I mean, if some medical use spilled over into it, that would be great in the future, much better than the mini storage. So I'm glad they can control it. And appreciate over the years had several conversations with Mr. Hayes and with Mr. Hosfeld about this, and so I'm glad it's kind of lined up where we finally got here to this point this night to close this island in and preserve some opportunities for the future.
And as far as the sign, there's two signs that Rob referenced, and the one across the street at the gas station, just for historical purposes. As I understand it, we got a lot of complaints when those signs went up, thinking they were in the city. And we did some investigation, and it turns out that all those signs went up without permits, which I found very strange. And I asked the county, I said, well, you gonna have them take it down? No, I'm gonna go ahead and permit them. So I find that very strange. Has nothing to do with Northside, obviously. But, that was just one of those quirks in politics, as you will. So, any other questions for?
I have a question.
Yeah.
For the applicant. Is this the extent of the signage y'all envision on these two properties?
Yes. Once this sign goes on these two properties, this would be the only sign that would be.
So you'd be amenable to stating that this will be the only sign on these two properties?
The only sign other people on those properties.
This will be our site identifier, yes, sir, for the entire, that complex, those three.
My only slight hesitation of that is is that the northern piece doesn't have any visibility on Town Lake Parkway. It makes sense to tie that to the southern piece, but I'm just thinking out loud, if there was like another little medical office building going on that other one, it might want to have separate signage, but it wouldn't be signage you would see from Town Lake Parkway. But if you just said blanket, no signage, it might do something unintentional.
My primary concern would be to prohibit future billboards.
Oh, yeah, oh.
If you'd be amenable to no future billboards on the two sides.
I didn't think about that.
Okay. Thanks.
Anything else?
Question for Bradley.
Yes, sir.
Where you recommend attaching the Article 11 of the county's ordinance, can that be attached to this sign application and not to the parcel?
Well, it's attached specifically to address the electronic sign itself. That's the only scope, only purpose it serves is to address that.
I'm not familiar with the article itself, so I don't know what else is there, but I understand attaching it to this sign application.
Right.
But I don't want to open a door for any other signs on either of the parcels that are not compliant with Woodstock's code.
No, it's specifically addressed. I'm skimming the language again, but we go on to include Exhibit C as the specific sign they want to put on and then or install, and then we use Exhibit D to govern the regulations for that sign. So that's exclusively the scope of the Cherokee County Code with regard to the signage on this property.
So
Does that make sense?
Any opportunities for additional signs under the county's code as opposed to ours?
In my opinion, no, but we've got legal counsel who may want to weigh in on that, just to be sure. But that's the way that we crafted it, was that the intent is obviously to only govern that sign, but we can definitely have our legal counsel double check that and make sure.
He's unmuted. Go ahead, Eldon.
I have not had an opportunity to review what all Brantley's proposed here, so I don't have any way of answering that off the top of my head.
Susan, right, we worked with Susan Stewart on it, so we can, the thing about this case is that the second reading would be in September, so the effective date would not be until October 1 anyway. So if we needed to come back and have a first reading on September 14th, we could definitely do that, because if we need to tighten some things up, we have no problem with that. I don't think the applicant would either. They can address it, but it doesn't change the date of the effective date. That's all I'm saying. If we need to go back and look at that again to be very sure about that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Anybody else? All right, this is a public hearing. We'll open up that portion of the agenda item. Rhonda? Nobody online or anything? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and open up for discussion or motions.
I'd make a motion to approve with the conditions that are stated here in Exhibit B. With one addition, we'd add condition 4 that would state that there shall be no billboards on either property after the proposed sign is constructed.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a David second. Further discussion? Roll call, Ward 1.
Aye.
2.
Aye.
3. 4. 5.
Aye.
6. Motion carries 6-0. The accompanying item is 8-2, public hearing, first reading, A 106-20, Northside Hospital Annexation and Charter Amendment. Brantley, is there anything you need to add?
Nope, just accompanying the zoning case. You know the drill.
All right. If there are no questions, I'll open up the public hearing. Rhonda? Just making sure. Close the public hearing and open up the discussion and our motions.
Motion to approve.
Second. We have a David motion and a Rob second. Any further discussion? Roll call, Ward 1. 2. 3. 4. 5.
Aye.
6. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 8-3 is public hearing and vote on case B 175-20, Savant parking variance. Luana?
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. Nice to see everyone here. So yes, this is case V 175-20, Savant parking variance. Next slide, please, Jeff. Thank you. This is in Council Ward 2. Lee Heisman with Savant has applied for a variance at 260 Heritage Walk in order to expand parking for their business. Next slide, please. This is the zoning map. You can see parcel 15N12 259 highlighted in red. The parcel is zoned DTGC and it's on the south side of Highway 92 along Heritage Walk. And you can see I've highlighted the Chick-fil-A, so you can see that this property is located kind of behind that in the Heritage Walk Office Park. Next slide, please. Thank you. So Savant has 3 buildings totaling 32,000 square feet. And you can see that those 3 properties are highlighted in yellow. You have 220, 250, and 301 Heritage Walk. And the subject property is highlighted for you in red. As of January of 2020, which is when we first met with Lee and his team of folks, at that time there were about 130 employees between the 3 buildings. And they were on track to make some more hires throughout the year. And when we first talked to them, they were telling us that they've got employees and clients, not only of Savant, but also other businesses within the office park that end up parking along both sides of Heritage Walk if the off-street lots are full. So you can even kind of see that in the aerial image here in front of building 220, which is the one on the left. And then the applicant provided me even this recent photo from the office park where you can see cars parked along the road. So Heritage Walk, though, was not really designed to accommodate on-street parking on both sides of the road. And having cars parked along both sides really could be an issue if there was an emergency. It could limit first responders' access within the office park if cars are parked on both sides of the street. So when Savant purchased the building at 250, they purchased the vacant lot next door at 260 with the desire to create additional parking spaces for their for their businesses. And when we met with them, we started the site plan process and got into everything. And we determined that a variance really would be needed in order to increase the number of parking spaces above the maximum number that's allowed by code. Next slide, please, Jeff. Thank you. This table here at the top right shows you the buildings, their square footage, the parking required, and the number of spaces that are provided. So in our code, a professional office use is required to provide 3 spaces per 1,000 square feet. And again, we've got that 10% allowance over that number. So the 3 Savant buildings have a total of 32,000 square feet and 102 existing parking spaces. So if you remember at the beginning, I told you at the beginning of this year, they had 130 employees. So already over that number of existing spaces. So in order to accommodate their existing employees and the guests and other people within the office park, And in anticipation of continued business growth, the applicant is requesting a variance so that they can construct a parking lot on that 260 parcel with 53 additional parking spaces. When we first met and we reviewed the site plan, we asked the applicant about sustainability measures. And so they are proposing to do the spaces in concrete, which meets one of the specifications for our sustainability options. And so when you look at across all of the buildings, the applicant is proposing parking at 4.85 spaces per 1,000. So they're exceeding the minimum number of spaces, or sorry, the maximum allowance of spaces by 49 spaces. Staff and Planning Commission do recommend approval of the applicant's variance request for the additional spaces with a couple of conditions. We talked about requiring the spaces to be constructed in concrete as is proposed, and also getting easements so that we tie the parking spaces to the existing property. We've talked before about our parking ordinance having low maximums intentionally, but staff really feels that having this additional off-street parking will contribute to public safety along Heritage Walk, because you're having cars parking in a dedicated parking lot, not along the street, not potentially blocking fire safety or life safety access if there was an emergency. By using light colored pavement and also the required parking lot islands and trees, that'll help to offset the any potential heat island effect that could come from just having a parking lot here. One other point, staff looked at this also from an economic development perspective. Business attraction and retention is one of the 3 focus areas that's in our economic development strategic program of work. And one of the economic development policies from our comprehensive plan is to accommodate growth while creating a sustainable community. And this includes a principle to encourage office, commercial, and light industrial employment opportunities in appropriate locations. And so staff is in support of this variance, with the conditions that we've discussed, and allowing the construction of these parking spaces could support economic development and business retention. And we do feel that the location is appropriate. I do want to point out that we heard from one of the adjacent business owners during public input, and he also reiterated that, if his office is operating at full capacity, he is also hearing from his patients and clients that they're having to park on the street. So other folks in the office park are aware of the need for this parking. So hopefully getting these specific tenants into an off-street lot would help alleviate some of that problem. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as I said, staff recommends approval of the variance request with one condition: a maximum of 53 parking spaces shall be allowed as shown on the site plan, and the spaces shall be constructed with light colored pavement as shown, and the applicant shall provide proof of recorded cross-access easements. And we've already been working with Lee and his attorney on those easements. And on August 6th, Planning Commission voted to recommend approval as presented by staff. So that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer. Lee Heisman is on the phone as well with us. So if he's got anything to add, we can turn it over to him.
Yes, not. Does anyone have any questions or anything for Nuwana?
Hello, this is Lee Height. Hello.
Go ahead.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Hello, Mayor and Council. This is Lee Heisman. Thank you, Nuwana, for again shepherding me through this process. I did want to say that since the Planning Commission meeting on August 6th, we've been very fortunate in our organization. We've continued to grow at this time. We're a technology firm, so we have actually added 7 new employees to our organization since the Planning Commission. I think I committed 6 at that time, but we're already at 7 new employees. So we've been fortunate to grow. So that's why the need of this is important and urgent, because we keep adding staff into the community. So thank you again for your time, and sorry I could not be there in person today.
That's okay. Anybody have questions? All right, if not, I'll open up the public hearing. Rhonda? Okay, then I'll close the public hearing and open up for discussion and or motions.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Staff conditions.
I'll second.
And we have a David second. Further discussion? Ward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Aye.
6. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Nuwana.
Thank you.
Item 8-4 is public hearing and vote, resolution of her transmittal of the 2020 capital improvements element and short-term work program update. Katie?
Hello again, Mayor and Council. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. All right. So as you probably all remember, every year we do this update to the capital improvements element and short-term work program as part of our annual update for our comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. And this is also a public hearing tonight. The first part of this report is really just financial reporting on our impact fee program. So this is the first of 2 tables. This one shows the expenditures for the impact fee program over this fiscal year. And this is also in your packet. Next slide, please. This is about the same fee, but it shows the properties that were purchased over this fiscal year with impact fees. The Johnston Park property, Little River Park, which we were formerly calling the Trickham Road Park. Some right-of-way for Noonday Creek Trail extension is on the list. Fowler Property Trailhead, Dupree Park expansion, and administrative fees, which it looks like we didn't have any transfer this year. So next slide, please. Also in this plan, or excuse me, in this update, we have short-term work program, and we have a table, a report of accomplishments. And so it's much longer than what I have here, but these are just a couple of things that I wanted to call out for our fiscal year 2020 accomplishments for things that were mentioned in the comprehensive plan or are on the short-term work program. So we completed and adopted the sustainability plan, and the image you can see on the right here is Jake Hill helping with some public input for the sustainability plan. We had some funds from the sidewalk maintenance and replacement fund dedicated. 293 linear feet were installed of 5-foot wide sidewalk, and 5,000 linear feet were installed of 8 to 10 foot wide trail. We also completed, as everybody knows, the downtown playground. The item that corresponds on this plan for that item is the item is 4 playgrounds at trailheads. And so this is going to be our first completed playground trailhead combination for the downtown playground and the Noonday Creek trailhead. Next slide, please. Let's see, we've got new items for 2020. I added a couple of new items to the list based on some recent projects and the sustainability plan being completed. So that resulted in several recommendations. One of them that we are going to actually do, according to Brian, is a green roof on the visitor center. We're going to try to get done in the next couple of years, fiscal years. We're going to implement recommendations from the sustainability plan in general, but specifically the first one I'm going to propose to you, as you already know, is the household hazardous waste drop center. And by approving this short-term work plan update, you're not actually approving any of these individual projects or funding for them, but just that they're on this list of things that we plan to do. So the next one is implementing pilot projects and recommendations from the Smart Woodstock Citywide Strategy and Corridor Study, which we're about to wrap up at the end of September. I plan to first present the illuminated crosswalk pilot to you, but I don't think I've given you any presentation about that, but that is going to be forthcoming. We also added streetscapes 4 through 8 this year, and this is just to get a little more specific with the streetscape program or the streetscape projects, the various projects that Rob and his department have been planning. And so this sets out specific sections along Main Street with specific project cost estimates. And then the Rote Mill Road long-term improvement is actually not really a new project, but it's a new project on this short-term work plan. So let's see. Any questions about that I can answer for you? I believe this is the last slide in this presentation. Yeah, thank you. If you'll go back, please. Thanks. So this is what I have to propose to you tonight. And there's a public hearing. And then if you guys approve this, you're approving us to transmit it to the Atlanta Regional Commission and the Department of Community Affairs for them to review it. And then it'll be sent back to you for adoption after that, which usually happens in late September, early October. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Anybody? No? All right, we'll open up the public hearing portion. No one signed up. We'll close the public hearing portion and open up for discussion and or motions.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a David and a Colin.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Ward 1,
Aye.
2,
Aye.
3,
Aye.
4, 5,
Aye.
6. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Item 8-5 is public hearing and vote on the August 2020 zoning map amendment. Nuwana, you're back.
Yes. I should have one slide. There we go. Next slide. Sorry, I had two. There we go. So this presenting just the one item that we had as an update to the zoning map. This was case Z122-20, the Ridgewalk Apartments, which rezoned this parcel from LI with Tech Park overlay to R4. You guys just heard this case last month, so it should be familiar with you. That's the only zoning case. And then other changes since the last update in February was just general QC done by GIS. So that is it for the zoning map amendment.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any questions? No. We'll open up the public hearing. And no one signed up. We'll close the public hearing and open up for discussion and or motions. We have a Rob and a Warren. Any further discussion? Ward 1,
Aye.
2,
Aye.
3,
Aye.
4, 5. 5. He may have stepped away.
I'm here.
Okay.
Aye.
6. Carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nuwana. Item 9-1.
Recuse myself the next two items.
All right. Item 9-1 is Arcadis Work Authorization 23A Niche Road Construction Design Segments 1 and 2. Rob Hogan.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor and Council, good evening. Hope you can hear me okay. Item 9-1 is work authorization 23 for Niche Road Construction Designs for segments 1 and 2 of Niche Road. And the information is provided in the packet, and I make myself available to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody? Self-explanatory. Okay. We're good, Rob. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
We have a David second. Any further discussion? Ward 1 is abstained. Ward 2?
Aye.
3?
Aye.
4? 5?
Aye.
6? Motion carries 5-0. I said abstain, I meant recused. Excuse me, misspeak. Item 9-2 is a major budget amendment. Rob?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, item 9-2 is the major budget amendment for that same work authorization 23A for Arcadis to complete the construction designs for segments 1 and 2. And the information is provided in the packet. I make myself available to answer any questions you may have.
Anyone? Having heard none, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
And David second. Further discussion? Ward 1 is recused. 2,
Aye.
3,
Aye.
4, 5,
Aye.
6. Motion carries 5-0 with 1 recusal. All right, we'll wait for Warren to come back. There you go. Thank you, sir. Item 9-3 is contract Cherokee County CDAP agreement. Brantley?
Thank you, Mayor. Council, we have before you tonight an agreement with Cherokee County for the CDAP program, the CDAP, Community Development Assistance Program through the Atlanta Regional Commission. And as we indicated in the agenda item, this program was awarded to Cherokee County to carry out the next phases of the housing study. Bleakley Advisory Group completed the housing study, or is completing the housing study for Cherokee County. And that report should be, final deliverable should be issued in a couple of weeks, I'm told. And so the CDAP program for the ARC are the next phases of the program. So we'll kind of get the report, get the data, be able to share that. And then the ARC is going to assist Cherokee County and the cities of Cherokee County, including Woodstock and Canton and Holly Springs, to begin kind of the public outreach portion of it, as well as implementation strategies, so on and so forth. So it's a great opportunity for us to work with Cherokee County and also to get the resources of the Atlanta Regional Commission to kind of help us roll out the findings of the study. And the match is about $3,000, so we're splitting that 4 ways, and so our part would be $750, which isn't too bad. So we think it's a great opportunity and recommend approval of the agreement, and we'll keep you posted on the next steps. Now, in the agreement, I will add that it was indicated that we would appoint, I believe, 2 folks to liaise with the county on this. Primarily, I think Katie and I will probably run point on the staff side, but not to put you guys on the spot, but if there's a member of the mayor and council would like to be a part of that, certainly I think that'd be great. So just at your discretion, I thought I would mention that tonight. So, but regardless, we'll definitely keep you up to date on what's going on. And if you don't want to decide tonight on an appointment, you can always do it at another time as well, I'm sure. So tonight's mainly about the agreement, and we're glad to work with you however you want to proceed.
Does anybody want to jump out there? Or you want to think about it?
What's the role involved?
So I think it's kind of to be determined exactly, but they want to form an advisory committee. And so I think that at a staff level, we would probably get in the weeds on a lot of things, but then they haven't said this to me, but I imagine that there might be some elected officials involved who may be more kind of taking on a little bit bigger picture role with it to some degree. That's just my impression. So either way, if you guys wanted to be part of that, I think that'd be very appropriate if that was your decision. So, but as far as a time commitment, I don't know what that would be, but I think that we could help you with that, or help whomever was appointed with that, and make sure that, if you couldn't make a meeting or we needed to cover something, we got it covered, that sort of thing.
You can always reserve volunteering until you know more about the time requirements, I think. If you have an interest, it sounds like you might. Okay, well, let's hold that in reserve.
Okay.
Anything else for Brantley?
The county is going along with this. This is a direction they're going to support.
They are. We the study was originally awarded, I think, in 2019, and so Bleakley came on board, and now this is kind of a re-up with the ARC. So But no, we've talked to them about it, and, the other cities have indicated they'd like to be a part of it. So it's great to see. I think everybody's doing something a little bit different, but I think we'll be able to we'll have the opportunity to tell the ARC kind of exactly what we're looking for and get some specific help from them as well, which will be great.
It's good to see the county working with us on this.
It is.
Anybody else? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Give a motion to approve.
Second.
Rob second. Any further discussion? Ward 1?
Aye.
2?
Aye.
3?
Aye.
4? 5?
Aye.
6? Motion carries 6-0. Item 9-4 is the Adopted Trail Program. Michael?
All right. So in the spring, we were asked to develop an adopted trail program. So we worked on it over the summer, and I think we're ready to go with it now. So in the packet, we have the different benefits and examples of the signage where the trails will be. The adopted locations, we have 9 locations right now, 3 on Noonday Creek, 2 on Town Lake Pass, 2 on Trestle Rock, and 2 on Roots Creek. Available for adoption. We have 7 groups interested right now, just putting the word out. So we think we'll fill it pretty quickly. Well, we've got this ready to go as soon as we get the approval. Do you have any questions about the benefits of it or anything
How
else?
did the 7 people find out if we didn't really publish
We
it?
put some signage on the trail, say coming soon. If you're interested, go ahead and contact us, and they have.
Okay,
So
cool.
different scout groups, Girl Scouts, some businesses, some individuals. So we may expand it into other trails and park areas if we need to.
Any questions for Michael?
What all will they be doing in particular, like cleaning the trail or?
Yeah, picking up trash, just general cleaning, 3 to 4 times a year, and with the service project once a year. Can be cleaning, trimming bushes, removing ivy. It could be blazing trails. It could be anything. Just we'll let them present what kind of project they want to do once a year.
Was one of them the Rotary Club of Town Lake?
I believe so. I don't have the list in front of me,
I
but
was
I think
gonna
they
say
did.
they've done stuff for us in the past. Anybody else? Okay, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have Rob and Warren. Any further discussion? Ward 1?
Aye.
2?
Aye.
3? 4? 5?
Aye.
6? Motion carries 6-0. Thanks, Michael. Item 10-1 is the wayfinding sign program update. Brian, there you are.
Hey, good to see you guys. I haven't seen y'all in a while.
Yeah.
I saw Tracy at Guston's the other day and hardly recognized her, so it's good to see you. We're bringing back a redesign package of the sign standards really for 2 reasons. One is that the one we had designed, I believe in 2013 or 2014, was done prior to the rebrand of the city and didn't capture any of the fun colors or elements of the brand, and was very focused on kind of historical railroad ties, which is featured in the new brand, but not as prominent as we used to be. And secondly, is it was very complicated to build. It was a lot of concrete work, and the sign companies that were bidding on it, we would only get 1 or 2 companies that had that type of experience to do. So we were spending a lot of money to do only a few signs. So Todd Vaught is the designer who did the original design of the signage, and we had him go back and kind of take a look at ways that we can incorporate the signs that we've already put out, which I believe, if I remember correctly, we did 4 parking signs, 4 or 5 what we call directional signs downtown. And then there was an offshoot of the sign package that was designed specifically for the amphitheater that was a little bit different, but took some cues from the original design. So if we can advance the slide, Jeff. So they developed about 5 different schemes, and myself and some other staff members narrowed it down to 2 for you guys to look at tonight. One of them is a little bit more traditional, that you'll see elements of that, a lot of other cities are going to have very similar kind of sign design styles, and the other one's a little bit more unexpected or out there. So I wanted to show you these 2. Y'all can give direction on this tonight. Once we get some kind of feedback from you on which way you want to go, we'll go to final design. So I would say when you're looking at this, don't worry too much about what the words say or even really the colors. You'll see the colors are all on brand, but they don't necessarily have to end up like that. So we'll go to a final design package. I've been told that both of these are much easier to implement, that they're much easier for a lot of sign companies to be able to do in-house as opposed to the ones before that were a little bit more intricate. So Jeff, if you'll advance. So this would be kind of the more traditional style sign, and you can see some of the same elements and shapes that are already out there in the signage that we have, but pulling in some of the brand colors. You're going to see two different options here. This one is a light color option, and then you'll see a dark blue option if you want to advance that to option B. There you go. And I think everybody kind of at first goes to this dark blue option in this scheme, but when you talk to the designers, they all say that the light option shows up better when you put it in landscape and around different areas, that this actually kind of fades into the background. So I think if we move forward, you see how easy this is. It's more panel based as opposed to structural based. The ones we have now are much thicker. This all can be done on routed machines. Go ahead and go forward. And start seeing, here's kind of an example of where they placed it. I think this is on Main Street coming south from Holly Springs maybe, but how you can see that one kind of fades into the background. And then I think if we go forward again, you'll start seeing how the lighter color version. And again, we don't need to decide on colors. We're still looking at kind of the overall design and shape of things right now. So about how the white pops a little bit more as it gets into the backgrounds. Go ahead. And then just some different options, pulling other brand elements into it. Go ahead. Go ahead. Then, of course, looking at scale. The ones we're looking at right now is what's called primary gateways. So these would be at our city limits coming into the city from other jurisdictions. Go ahead. And then these would be what's called secondary gateways. So this could be a downtown district sign coming into downtown Woodstock. Go ahead. Go ahead. And just looking at different ways of putting the different brand elements in there. This one would not be appropriate because it's got two different brand elements on there. Go ahead. All right, so does anybody have questions on that one? Again, that's a little bit more standard. You can see elements of the current signs that are out there in that. This one's a little bit more funky, and I'm kind of excited about this. I've had some discussions with the staff who reviewed this. This would be unlike what you'd see in other cities. So Jeff, if you'll advance. And it's a little bit more panel and routed based. And again, don't worry, we probably wouldn't have a sign that says welcome to Woodstock. It'd probably say City of Woodstock, so don't focus too much on the words that are there. Go ahead. And so you start seeing the dimension here where you're pulling in the colors on the different panels that are planned as part of it, and different areas where you can put taglines or sayings or whatever we might want to. Go ahead. And it's a little hard to kind of see this in these renderings. So there's going to be an example of actual signage that's like this here in a minute, but go ahead and advance. And you start seeing how that's all spaced out. And apparently this is very, very inexpensive according to them, because it's really just stuff that people can do on basically 3D printers using the materials that we would specify. Go ahead. So you start seeing how if you paint the panels within there, you can start getting color put into it. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. And this might be the secondary gateway coming into downtown, which again, probably wouldn't say welcome to, but it might say downtown Woodstock. Go ahead. start getting into, and this is actually a treatment that we use on the amphitheater signage. So having the individual letters off of the poles that are in there, you can actually see this in play when they did amphitheater signage. Go ahead. And here's some, because I know this is so weird, that's an actual sign that's kind of the same, some actual examples of real signage that's out there that's not just computer generated off to the right there. Go ahead. So very briefly, those are the two options that we sort of internally like the best out of the 5 or 6 that were presented to us. You guys can ask questions. You can think about it. I know I didn't give this to you in advance, so we can send it out to you if you'd like to mull it over and kind of give us direction on which might be your favorite to take to final design. So I can try to answer any questions you guys have.
Have you put any thought to how you would clean? I mean, the second one looks pretty neat, but you know, it looks to me like it's a great opportunity for birds to land on that and make a mess out of it. And then how are you going to clean all the panels in between?
That's a good question. I can certainly ask the designer how you do keep that stuff clean. Very good question.
Hey, Brian, David here. I like the option 2 just because of the uniqueness of it. But can you send us some more like signs that have been made like that in the past, so we can kind of see what it looked like on, you know, different areas and different layout? I don't know who's done those signs before, but just kind of show us some more pictures of those type signs.
Sure, of ones that are actually installed, like those last 2 pictures.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Let's see what I can do about that.
I like the second option as well. As far as the secondary gateway, I didn't like necessarily the way it was broken up wood stock, but I think the design is pretty unique, and I like it better than the first one. I would be curious if you could share the other options that y'all saw, though.
Sure. We can send you the entire. Now they're not as detailed, but we can certainly send those out.
Okay. You told us not to get hung up on what it said and all, but where it said welcome to Woodstock, the ledger lines above and below welcome extended way past the word. I didn't really care for that. Too far.
Okay.
So I don't know what the real plan is in that.
Okay. Yeah, we can clean that up a little bit. Katie's texting me, telling me I need to have headphones on to be able to hear you because I'm having a hard time hearing y'all.
Brian, I think they're a good step. And it reinforces the identity that we have. So I actually like the first set probably a little better, but just to be contrarian. I like the high contrast white backgrounds, but I like the brand elements pulled in there. I thought it was good to see the brand reinforced.
Okay. With the option 1, it needs to be the white one.
Yeah.
I
I think that blue will.
Stand out more at night when headlights hit it and all kinds of things.
Yeah, and I like if we have the secondary colors, the teals or the blues or the oranges or whatever, you know, all the different brand colors that we have, pull those in too. But I think high contrast is the way to go with these signs because you want that contrast to pop when headlights hit it at night or when people drive past it. It doesn't need to fade into the trees.
Right. I think my only concern with the white, and I think it's everybody else's first thought, is white's going to get dirty again in the maintenance of it. But once he said that really is the way to go when you do these signage, you know, that's his recommendation is that lighter contrast for those reasons. So.
Got it. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, Brian, if you'll get some more information or pictures to them.
Will do.
Hopefully they'll give you some feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, 11-1 is approval of the minutes from the July 27th, 2020 regular council meeting. Are there any changes or corrections needed? Let's wait a second here. Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Have a motion to approve.
Second.
Colin, second. Any further discussion? Ward one, two, three,
Aye.
4, 5,
Aye.
6. Motion carries 6-0. 11-2 is a redo. There was pointed out there, we approved the minutes from the 7/20/2020 special called meeting and work session, and there was a correction needed. I think, Colin, you pointed it out. And I'm assuming everybody read it, and I'll entertain a motion.
Motion approved. Second.
David, second. Any further discussion? Ward one,
Aye.
2,
Aye.
3,
Abstain.
4, 5,
Abstain.
6. Motion carries 4-0 with 2 abstentions. Item 12 are comments. I don't have anything. Does any council member have anything they wish to offer? No? Okay. Mr. City Manager?
Yes, sir. I do have one, besides asking for executive session, that I'm going to need to ask council to add to the agenda if you so choose when I explain it. This year in the budget ordinance that council adopted regarding travel, it says no out-of-state travel. I'm going to ask you to approve 2 exemptions to that. And let me explain. The first one was a class that the training officer, training sergeant in the police department was registered to go to in Virginia through Force Science. It was police de-escalation training. That was scheduled in March and it was canceled because and paid for out of last fiscal year. It was canceled because of the COVID concerns. That has been rescheduled and has been moved from Virginia to Nashville in September. Since the class was already paid for, the only difference is he was going to stay with a relative in Virginia and will have to pick up a hotel. But given what the nature of the class, that one is through Force Science. It's called Use of Force Analyst. What it does is the training officers, a training program to review our policies, reviewing our training classes, how to review every use of force report that is done in the police department and identify training opportunities that could be presented. So we would like to request a waiver since it was paid for our last fiscal year and we'll only be paying for the hotel out of this year. I'd like to ask you to request a waiver for that. The second is also through Force Science for the police training officer. And it's kind of a second part or companion class, and it's de-escalation training. And it would actually be in Detroit. He's going to switch from an online class to this one since they're kind of companion classes. So really the budget is going to cost us $300 more than what he could pay to take it online. But given the nature of what these 2 classes are, and this is the training officer who'll be able to come back and institute this in our in-service training for officers, review of use of force support, reports, policies. I'm going to ask you to add a waiver to those 2 classes so that we can send a training officer for those.
All right. Is that it?
Yes, sir, besides requesting the executive session. And that's the only thing we're asking to add to the agenda tonight is the waiver for the 2 travel items.
You want to go ahead and do that now?
It's perfectly fine with me if you wish. That way there wouldn't be anything after executive session except to adjourn.
Okay.
I think since it's the same company and it's the same officer going, I think a motion to authorize Officer Sinfeld to attend the 2 Force Science training classes, one in Nashville, one in Detroit, will be sufficient.
We have a Warren second. Further discussion? Ward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Aye.
6. Motion carries 6-0. This will be item 9-5 under new business. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a David second. Any further discussion? Ward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Aye.
6. Motion carries 6-0. Now I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss real estate litigation personnel.
Yeah, a motion.
We have a Warren and a Colin. Any further discussion? Ward 1,
Aye.
2, 3, 4, 5,
Aye.
6. Motion carries 6-0. If those online will log off and log on to the other link. Thank you.